As I started the last episode saying that this is the first time we have ever, I think, a two-part series for our show. And I think it shouldn't have been any other person than Abhishek, I feel, because the way you have probably garnered with the first episode, you showered us with all the stories and insights into the role of an agent. And I'm sure, if not the utmost clarity, if people have still confused, I would just say that go back, listen, probably keep listening to the episode,
Yeah,
because whatever you shared, and I think we've done justice to, at least at some level, to break it down into parts. Otherwise, like I mentioned the last time,
correct.
that we could have definitely churned a 30-minute episode, but we wouldn't have got into these details and the way you broke down. To all of you wondering, I haven't forgotten my manners. Welcome to the Totally Indian Football Show with me, your host Siju. And if you're here for the first time, thank you for being here and continue to be. I hope you stay till the end. We shall all walk off together in the end. But let me once again welcome Abhishek Sharma to the show. Thank you, Abhishek, for doing this once again, and welcome.
Hello, good to be back. And I enjoyed the first episode myself. It was very organic, it was very natural, and it was different for a change. Usually, whenever like we go on these football podcast or different sports podcast, some of it is planned, but this was so organic and it came very natural and it was very storytelling. So I also had a good time. I hope the listeners too do have a good time.
Yeah, and if they missed out on then, I would say please go back to listen to it, but not yet. Listen to this episode, and
Yes,
it's still a new and fresh episode, though it's called part two. Because
correct,
today we're going to talk about all about the athletes. If the first part was all about what the agent does and what he or she has to do or to take note of, this is all about the athlete side of thing. And I think we'll talk about today about the psychology, the emotional aspect,
correct,
the other aspects that an agent or someone running an agency with players have to cater to.
correct.
So, Abhishek, you are the founder of Athletes Today and also the CEO. So, to start off with, I want to ask you, now you mentioned how different an agent's role is and how a manager's role is, right? But if I may ask you, if this does this sound right when I say you are an agent by yourself, and then you also now run an agency which
Correct.
kind of caters to the other services that you also want to provide for a player.
Correct.
Does that make sense? Is that,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so now coming to the fact, I have always wanted to talk about this topic is about players with regards to their wages and having and putting a number or putting a value to the player, right?
Correct.
So I think with the influx and the addition and the inception of these agencies coming into board, they have put a value, which is a good thing. Especially, you cricket
Correct.
is right up there, and
Correct.
the other sports are somewhere down
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
So it's good in a way, definitely for the player. But then, do you feel somewhere does this hamper the relationship between the player and, say, irrespective of whether it's the media guys
Mm-hmm.
or whether it's the branding, and then I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot more on in the
Correct.
sponsorship aspect as well. So the first point is, because I've seen this and I've heard from my fellow journo friends where they say that they kind of become unapproachable at times, the players,
Correct.
because they have to go now via the agency
Correct.
and convince them why they should interview.
Correct.
Maybe before the agency coming into picture, they were good friends.
Correct.
Even journalists and
Correct.
players have a good relation, right?
Correct.
And because of the agency, the players can't talk to them anymore.
Correct.
So, what do you have to say about that? And how do you position that aspect into your agency?
See, to start off with, the players can always have a good relation with journalists, fans, people they are close to, coaches, and all of that. And for someone like me, I don't really interfere in those things. When, from an agency perspective, what happens is there is a certain type of norm that we need to follow when the player is communicating with these people, and that is very important because it affects the brand building process of a player. So when we sign a certain player with a certain caliber and then we see there is a projection or a growth in the game or in the marketing and branding aspect of the player, then it's very important for us to also protect and give a shield. Some journalists might have the right intentions to connect or they like the player, but some might just want to cook up news. And because the player is a public figure, in demand, spoken about, there's a brand building process that is going on with the player. So it's very important for us to know that what how much can we let that out in the open. So it's best to route it through the agency, because then it becomes simpler for us to understand what is the motive behind this. There have been incidents before, like earlier we would not really interfere in journalist and a player talking or some sort of a fan engagement or things like that, and we still want to keep it very organic. But there have been instances like, for example, I have a very well reputed hockey player. She is probably the biggest star in hockey, and there was a certain topic that was brought up by the media and a certain narrative that was playing. Now people would reach out to her directly, and she's not comfortable talking about that topic. You have to understand what happens is, media and journalists, because they want to do what they think is right, or their propaganda, or maybe their genuine story, they want to put out a problem. It could be a society problem, it could be a playing problem, it could be technical. So sometimes I understand what the journalist is trying to do, but some players don't understand that, and because it's such a personal experience for them, it's not possible. So I have to get out there and shield my player, because I know on day to day basis that this could be a very organic question from the media. For example, you and I and a lot of other people, we come from a certain background or a certain privilege, if I would add. So we understand that talking about such sensitive issues to the media and in the media is important, because it raises awareness. You shouldn't withhold yourself doing so. But for the background of these players, where they come from, it's not the best idea, because they come from places where the society is very closed. They come from places where their family members and a word of mouth conversation can take a different toll. So it's very important for us to understand the psychology of the player and then sort of guide them and give that protection. So like I had mentioned, there was a big star, and there was a certain question that was floated around and she wasn't comfortable with it. I would go out of my way to protect that, because I know she's not comfortable. And there were good, ethical journalists and agents, news agencies that were carrying that news. I know those guys, those journalists are my very good friends. We align in so many ways. So I get their intention, but I had to explain it to them saying she's not comfortable talking. So for them, what happens is she under pressure not talking about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that wasn't the case. It's a question which is so personal to you that you don't want to take a call.
Right.
So I think these are the things where one should evaluate and talk. But players are always, I love for the players to connect with the fans. And I make it a point that anybody young or older, I give it my 100% that they're connecting with the fans, because they're stars because of the fans. And some examples, like all the type of players that I've worked with, from Ashalata, Lalit, Vandana, Gurpreet, Saurav, down to earth people, yeah. Like most down. So the bigger the star you are, the more down to earth you are. Like I would also add on, I've met Sunil Chetri multiple times. I don't represent him, nothing like that. But Sunil sir is one of the most genuine guys to meet.
Yeah.
He's a very genuine, nice guy. So I think, and he's so humble.
Yeah.
So I think these are the right values that a young footballer or a young sportsman should look at people. And same with maybe Virat. Virat, he's the biggest star in the world, maybe, probably, and in India, of course, but very down to earth, very easygoing. And you should also, like, I would like to add is, like, for the general audience and fans, they should treat players like a human being and a normal person.
Right.
If you go normally trying to convey and talk to any of these players, they will talk to you. But if you get into that herd mentality of, 2 second you want a selfie, or you want to know something, or you want them to say, I don't know, I love you to their girlfriends or something like that, I don't know. So that, I think, is not this thing. So I want people to understand that, be normal. You're a big fan of their work, but they're normal human beings like you and I are. So yeah.
Yeah. I think the whole aspect of as you mentioned, the human aspect of it, and also the fact that approachability is you can't encroach somebody's
Correct.
privacy, right? I think
Correct.
what happens there is we kind of own we tend to feel
We
like we
think,
own
yes,
them.
yeah, correct.
So they have to oblige to
Correct.
taking a photo with
Correct.
me.
I am the
Yeah,
supporter and they
yeah.
have to,
So
yeah,
yeah.
correct.
Though I'm saying this, have had fans on the show as well previously, but I'm just saying the fact that they take
I'm
up so much serious
Yeah, but
about
I'm also
themselves.
a fan.
Yeah, same here.
So are we, like
Yeah,
all of us,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I leave my fan support once I'm done with the stadium or
Hmm.
once I've seen a good game. I can have my highs and
Yeah.
lows. But if I see a certain player or the certain professional, because I treat them as professional people,
Hmm.
like how I do my job, you do
Yeah.
your job, and like the million others. So I would go have a conversation, but
Right.
not like impose myself, like you were saying. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that also comes with time, and as you grow,
correct,
because we worked now behind the scenes, we
correct,
understand.
correct.
I'm sure if we were still one of them, I'm sure we would
I
still
still
want to.
wouldn't. No,
Yeah,
I've never been one of those.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Because I remember, I mean, I know this is going off tangent now,
Mm.
but I remember bumping into Brian Lara in a mall,
Wow.
and I was like so politely waiting outside. I still remember which mall it was in Palladium, and he was
Wow.
with Gaurav.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was looking at something else. My sister pointed out, saying that, "Hey, that's Gaurav." So I turned back and I'm like, "Leave Gaurav. That's Brian Lara walking with him. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at Gaurav."
Yeah.
I'm like, no offense. I really
Yeah.
absolutely loved
Correct.
Gaurav as well.
Absolutely.
But that's Brian Lara just walking casually. That man is a legend. Has records after
Yeah,
him, and just
absolutely.
casually walking in a mall, right? So suddenly people thought now have started recognizing him. But I like a very politely just stood outside because he was enter Steve Madden's store, and I politely stood outside waiting for him to go, and then I will go. When I saw everybody going, I'm like, "ठीक है." I asked the service guys who were working the store, like, "Can I?"
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, please go.
Correct.
So even this was Gaurav who clicked the selfie for
Yeah.
us because of
Yeah.
course height, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like these guys are like as you mentioned
Yeah.
that the human aspect.
And
But
Brian
yeah,
Lara, I've never had the privilege to meet
yeah,
him.
this is one of those privileges
But
you
yeah,
get.
but like I would have, I would have loved to ask him the 364 against England back in the day before
You know what,
the second
Abhishek?
knock.
We always think about this, saying that I will ask them this.
But it
But I
doesn't happen.
froze.
Yeah, yeah, it
I
doesn't
was
happen.
fumbling in front of
Yeah,
him and I shook hands with him and I don't know what I said.
yeah,
But he just opened his mouth. I'm like, okay, anyway, let's come back to the
yeah,
show now.
yeah, yeah.
To talk about.
The story of John T. Rhodes when I worked in the IPL, maybe I will share it later. But yeah,
Yeah, before we close for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So coming back, right, about the whole value I mentioned. When I say value, yes, it's the figure, the number that we add to this. And at times, do you think agencies have they just put a figure because a part of the commission has to go to them?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
But for any player, now I'm not undermining any player here, right? I don't want to come up with an instance which I had. But the whole thing I'm saying, how do you then make players say have more whatever visibility in terms of doing some more content and doing some more work out there with regards to okay, so I had approached for a player with the academy that we play. She was ready. She said, "Okay, but go via the agency." And we said, "Yeah, of course, we'll go." And horrendous amount that came by, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, we already have a popular figure.
Mm.
Okay, I was just wondering that why would you quote such a high amount? So I'm just saying that
Okay.
from my perspective, I'm like, that's a lot of money. I
Yeah.
wish we already had it. Probably I'd have done an ad shoot instead of doing
Yeah.
anything else,
Yeah.
right? So how do you then you have different kind of players as well,
Correct.
right? The top ones, the going to be on their way top ones as well.
Correct.
So how do you one probably sit down and how do you put a figure where what happens in a discussion with the player that you have, and then do you also gauge who's approaching for this player and what kind of content? Is it an ad? Is it
So you're talking
whatever?
about the commercial side, not
Yes.
footballing
Not
contracts.
footballing contracts,
Okay.
but the commercial aspect with regards
Correct.
to anything. Like for example,
Correct.
an academy approaches saying, "Can you talk about this?"
Ambassadors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ambassadors and
Correct.
stuff.
Correct.
Or even if it's a small video, content related,
Correct.
whatever.
Correct.
Like from the
Correct.
biggest to the biggest to the smallest of the smallest
Correct.
things.
Correct.
So how do you then gauge and try to put a figure to it?
See, what happens is it's very important for us to understand all agencies inflate figures,
Hmm.
okay? Because they want their athlete,
Yeah.
they want to show that value.
Yeah.
And when I say all agencies, like even we do sometimes. So I'm not someone different from the
Yeah.
others. But I think what is very important to know is what sort of inflation you're doing. Inflation to economy में भी चल रहा है, you know.
Hmm.
So how are you at what figure are you coming for
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
player, certain,
Hmm.
and why are you inflating it so much?
Hmm.
So is there do you want to create a niche? Do you want to create a demand for the player? Do you want to position a player at a certain category that can compete with maybe musician and actors and all of that? So what we do is we use different matrix in terms to understand like what could be a certain value that we can get out. So for example, we could look at social media numbers, we could look at performances in the last 2 years, competitions that they compete in, what is the type of organic audience that they connect with, what is the appeal that they have for a broader audience. So I think considering these facts, then we come to a figure or a number where we think is very justified. Now I think 90% times I don't go to a brand, or my team does not connect to a brand just giving whatever number comes to our heart and make that deal happen because we will get better commissions. No, maybe our approach from the start and my approach has always been that whoever be this brand, we try making a partnership with them. So I don't want the brand to do like a one time investment, right? If a brand comes in and says, I'm going to spend 10 lakhs, for example, on one player image rights for 1 year, and I will give you XYZ. So for me, what is important is you do that 10 lakh deal. I want to build this partnership with you. I also want to understand, are you doing media expense on that? Are you spending more money over there? What is the type of media that you're using? How much are you going to promote my player? Once that partnership is built, for example, a big brand has, they have like 200 crore, 100 crore, 50 crore budgets. They can easily service my player, and if they think the player is right. So for us, what happens is, my approach has always been that I like doing multi-year proper sponsorship deals. I am not like, I have to evolve with the times now. Maybe do like a 1 month influencer marketing deal. I'm not a big fan of it because it works for content creators but not sportsmen, right?
Hmm.
Sportsman has to wake up at 4, train, practice,
Yeah.
and then in 4 years comes the Olympics or a World Cup or a big tournament. So I can't be having them to stand every day and shoot a 5 minute dancing video.
Yeah, and they're not that they're everyone's comfortable in front of a camera
Correct.
because that's not their expertise. Yeah.
Exactly. So I find out what my player is good, what are their hobbies, what do they like. This is all a part of the process when we sign a player.
Hmm.
For example, my I can have two women football players. For example, Asha's requirements, hobbies, and priorities are very different to Sweetie's hobbies and priorities. Both are central defenders, both play for the women's national team, but they're different.
They're two different human beings. Yeah.
Correct. And their preferences are different.
Yeah.
And I have to treat them very differently.
Yeah.
So I think what is very important is once we understand what my player wants and then what the market has to offer. And 90% we like converting and doing these deals where we see a long term partnership. I just want to not do one time work with a brand who wants my player and then let the brand vanish and let me vanish.
Hmm.
I love building long term relations with them because at the end of the day, if they're looking at the sports market, I know they're going to invest more. I know they understand that this is the future. I know that India's had year on year growth in terms of the type of athletes that have come out and competed. Tokyo Olympics is a fantastic example. That was the highest participation, a lot of medals, a lot of close calls. Our recognitions were very good. So I think these are important things that are happening, and I take a call on that honestly. When and be it the biggest brands, like
Hmm.
it could be a sports wear brand, it could be Puma, Adidas, or it could be brands like Tata Tea. Can you compete with Tata Tea's distribution in India? You can't.
Hmm.
And it's the biggest brand there. But when we shot a campaign with them to have Vandana in it, it was an unbelievable feeling.
Hmm.
And where did this marketing of this campaign go? It wasn't just for, oh, it's going to come on YouTube. No, the branding and the marketing of it happened on railway stations in tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Hmm.
It happened, there were banners, there were things where the mass audience were getting to know, oh, these are our girls who came fourth in the Olympics. What a fight. This is the team that beat Australia 1-0 in that.
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps when I say it.
Yeah.
This is Vandana who scored first ever hat trick, a girl to score a first ever hat trick in the Olympics. So I think that made a difference. And so for us, it's very important the brands that we work with. We want to know their plan also. Just
Hmm.
not give us the money and we will come.
Hmm.
Money is a component, but everything around it also matters. Yeah.
I think in that question, I mean, though I was the one who asked it, but we also had a similar kind of a question. One of our listeners had put in a question, and I think you answered that as well, because even he wanted to know about what is the metrics that you go by. I think the more common question I had
Correct.
for this
Correct.
segment was the metrics that you follow to put a
Correct.
value in the commercial aspect. And you
Correct.
rightly mentioned and
Correct.
gave us an insight into that. Now coming to the whole wages part, which is basically what they get, right? The
Correct.
contract bit. So how does that work? How do you put their like you mentioned about even in the commercial side of things, you also do how the on-field performance is. So when you get a player that you're starting out with, for
Correct.
example, you've had Saurav and you've had
Correct.
Sumit, and how do you then position them out there, and how does what happens out there in the contract, before signing it with the
Correct.
teams and the how
Correct.
do you first sit with the player, try to make them understand, and how does that conversation go by, and then finally when you are both the parties meet together, how does that go by?
So, see, I like understanding the psychology of a certain player, understanding their background, understand where they come from, what their goals are. So, these are the key things that initially only make me understand that are we a good fit or not. So, there are times where, like, I've always chosen quality over quantity. So for me, what happens is there are a lot of players that reach out. I wish I was massively funded and I could have a 50-member team and I could service all these wonderful players, but I can't. So when I choose the player or the player chooses me, I think it's very important is that sync and is the first conversation. I like to understand the attitude of the player. Is he a team player? Does he, for example, I always use this in terms of psychology and understanding the attitude of the player. Before I sign a player, I go see a game that they're playing in. 100%. Whether, like, be it the biggest star or be it the smallest player. When I go see the game, I try and understand, regardless of the result of the game, what is the attitude of the player? Does he combine with the team? How does he treat? What is his treatment with his teammates? How does he treat his coach? What his understanding of the game? How does he treat his opponent? So I think this gives me a rough idea to know how players are in general. And if then the marriage happens, is I try being very realistic to them. So the thing is, a lot of the younger players, everybody wants money, but they don't understand that what are the mediums you're using to get that money and how good you are. For example, I'm a certain player in a certain position in the field of play. I'm talking, I know I'm the third choice to make it to the team. Now if you are the third choice, why you're the third choice? Because you don't have experience, but you're good. You're a developing player and you can definitely become better. Now, if that developing player comes and puts a six figure to me and says, this is what I want, which is not possible, I don't even agree to some of the agents and agencies, especially in football, when they do it, because that ruins the expectations in the market. For example, a very underrated good player deserves a decent value, wants a six figure. Suppose a club comes in and pays that six figure. What happens is the 50 players who play in that positions with different clubs all want that six figure, which is not possible. So I think it's very important for us to have a frank chat, and then I give them a career trajectory. So we make goals together. For example, with Saurav, we had goals together. Saurav
Mm-hmm.
was always a wonderful player.
Right.
East Bengal Academy, 80K reserve team. He had all the right merits to make. This guy can become a good player.
Yeah.
So with him, what we realized was when we got that I League contract, We took it. It wasn't very high paying money. It wasn't a lot of different promises. Or today, the new word of the town is every player wants game time in their contract.
Hmm.
They are talking about game time as if we are playing 40 matches a season and they're not getting to play,
Hmm.
right? So game time you want in your contract, fair enough, but I think once you reach a certain level that you're playing so many matches that you want game time, right, then I can tell the club my player is so good, he's experienced, he is qualified, he should get this game time. If a 17-year-old kid comes in and says I want 80% game time and this is the money that I want, which is not possible. So I think managing that expectations and having a frank chat is the reality of it. And with Saurav, like, again, with the I League, everything, he didn't even get to play the first season properly. He played the second season. So I kept telling him, you wait for your chance, we will take it.
Hmm.
And when he performed and that assist that he gave and the goal that he scored, we had bigger clubs calling. And when the bigger clubs also came, I think I personally sat down and my team, my manager who works very, very closely with Saurav, Shudipto. So we had to make Saurav understand, and Saurav was compromising to know that. Knowing ki, yes, let my career graph take up. Once I'm in that level, once I'm scoring maybe 10 goals a season, once I'm assisting this thing, yes, then I have Abhishek Bhai in my life, then I know. So at that point of time when he's on the top, I can go demanding to the club saying I want six figures and they will pay. You know what I mean? So I think that expectation, understanding the attitude of the player, what is their hunger to play first? Because you come from nothing, right? Now you have a lot of money. Money is good, but do you still have the hunger to play football, or do you have the hunger to warm the bench and make money? So it's to you. So I give that option. I don't discriminate. I meet a lot of players who say I want money. That's why I'm playing, and I respect them for that. And I meet some players who are like, I want to play, and my advice is you keep playing, you will make money. So yeah, that's how it works.
Now, since you're talking about players, I want to squeeze this aspect in because you're talking about the wages aspect. We often talk about why Indian footballers don't probably play outside India, or whether it's the European leagues or whether
Correct.
it's the Asian leagues. That's what I would probably ask rather than the Europe is the one that why aren't we at least trying out? Not the ones who are probably 25 and above, but at least the ones who are growing up, so 17 plus to between 23, 24, that to have a exposure among the Asian circuit because that's where you want to be top 5 in, right?
Correct.
And then globally go up from there.
Correct.
So to get that exposure, to get that learning what's happening in Japan, or we spoke about Uzbekistan or any of these countries. And I think the rhetorical question, I know the answer to it, but for a young player, even there, it's a big no for them, that they don't want to go out just because the money is less, or just because you don't want to position that player with that bracket because it might be difficult when he comes back to India to then maybe up his value. How does that work? And do you try, or have you tried talking to players about, maybe talking to teams outside India and getting a offer for
Correct.
them?
So my first thing, coming back to leaving the value and everything, our players are not good enough. So we have to understand a fundamental problem that is there is our players don't play a season which is 30 matches, 40 matches, and from a very young age. So it's very rosy to say these guys can go play in Asia, but they're not good enough. Second, our grassroots structure is not right. So I think if when you talk about Japan, it competes every year in the World Cup. When you talk about someone like Iran, when you talk about Iran is in a economic turmoil, it's in like civil war, there are issues in that country, but yet they get to that spot. I think the difference is the grassroots structure in any of these Asian countries are better than India. We don't tend to focus on building a foundation. So what happens in generic, this is not just football, and I will leave cricket aside because cricket has a good system. I like the system of cricket. I might be critical of different things that cricket does, but I like the system of cricket. Now with other sports, the problem is in India the hierarchy goes in terms of there is a pyramid. So in India we go from up to down.
Hmm. Yeah.
Usually it's from down to up. That's your pyramid cycle. You've built a massive base. You get your grassroots structure. Do you think in India we have good grassroots programs? You've been a journalist. We don't, right?
No. Yeah.
So that is the first fundamental problem. Now, when the players develop or they play these tournaments under 15, under 19, some players are good enough who can develop and go outside, but the money is too less. At that age, if I have to consult a player, I would still give them the option to go outside, play. Money is not important, get a name. Usually, when a player from outside comes back to India, they come at a higher value. So, there is
Hmm.
never a problem with any agent or agency thinking, agar ye Uzbekistan mein khel raha hai, is playing in some league, if he comes back to India, he'll not get money.
Hmm.
Rather, if the player is not good enough, just for PR basis, he's gone to some club, stayed there for didn't even play one match over there. When he comes back to India, na, Indian
The
clubs are
values.
willing to throw
Hmm.
money. And you have seen past
Yeah.
examples of some of our amazing players going abroad and
Yeah.
getting a reality check. So when people ask me this, we have good players. I have nothing. I love all the players. I love the football system. I love players who are not even my players. I watch them as fans. But we have to accept our reality. Like I said, no, try being transparent.
Hmm.
So our reality is fundamentally we are not good enough. Our grassroots structure is not right. Our developing structure is not right. I think once we can address these things, maybe in 10 to 15 years, we can get a good player who can get out and then maybe play in Europe or play in the second division somewhere in Asia or in a top Asian team. So that is the reality of it. The money is less, but advisable to go play, understand, see the atmosphere, work with players, get out of your comfort zone. The reason why I have a lot of strong bond with Gurpreet as a person as well, I have a lot of respect for him to go out and give that a shot. Yes, there were times he didn't play the maximum of the matches, but to take that challenge up, to go get out of your comfort zone, to go compete, to go try, wait for that one opportunity which he did get, and then things follow. Now in the league, if you see, he's the best goalkeeper. You can't. Vishal is very good as well, but Gurpreet Singh Sandhu is like Mount Everest, so you have to understand these things. So I think a lot of the younger players should understand that, and agents or player managers, the expectations have to be right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope I got this right.
Yeah,
you
I
know
mean,
you
I
know
think, like I
yeah,
said, when I was asking also, it's most that the answer that you gave of we are not good enough.
yeah,
It's a harsh reality, but that's
yeah,
a reality and it's
yeah,
a fact.
yeah.
But my also thing was, are we not even good enough to play even in the fourth, fifth divisions of any of these things?
You can, but then very little money. You're spending your own money.
Right,
Expenses are high. Communication barriers.
right.
Do, for example, like a player, at any Indian player wants to play in the Indian system, which I also encourage.
Hmm.
But if they think I might get a shot playing 2 years second division, and maybe if I play well get to the I League, or do I go to some other country, play the fourth division, and then I don't know if I come back to India, will they think I'm good enough
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
play?
yeah.
So I think there is always
This
that
back and forth
dilemma,
thought. Yeah,
correct? And I must say that there is no one route.
yeah.
So there is no one way of doing things. It's a combination of multiple things that go on.
Right. I think I'm sure that question is out of the way for even for people who want to ask, because I remember, like, a couple of weeks back when I had a meeting with someone, and the person who's investing into a sports company and they're trying to build something, and they asked me, okay, you've been a journalist, why aren't we not playing outside? It's a very easy question to
Yeah,
ask, right? Just throw,
yeah,
why aren't we not playing
correct,
outside without even understanding what's
correct,
happening? So that's the exact answer I gave him, what you started
correct,
with, right?
correct.
But I wanted to. I did tell him that I will soon probably interview a sports agent, and then I'll ask him.
Fair enough.
But he probably will have a laugh if he listens to the episode saying, "Oh, same answer."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
coming to the whole aspect of, you mentioned the sponsorship and the brands, and
Correct.
you're also not just working with brands to make these. I mean, to partner with these players, but you're also trying to make brands out of these players,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
When you work with them individually, and especially the ones that already made it or the ones who are trying to
correct.
make it, how does that process go by? Like, how much? Because there are a lot of challenges there. I think that's one of the challenges that comes to your way of I mean, the example that you're talking off the record, if you want to share about that, of signing Asha and then saying, and then the way you've got her with the
Yeah,
brands and with the
yeah.
exposure that she's got. How challenging was those aspects, and to probably stand to saying, okay, finally, thank God I've delivered, kind of a thing, that situation. How
Correct.
did you reach that level of, if you can share some of that?
So I always found that women athletes generally in India.
Also because, sorry to cut you, but
Yeah,
also because women, I mean, other athletes that you have, at least they play.
yeah,
But in football,
yeah.
we don't see, at maybe now we do see, but
Correct,
we don't see them at all playing out there regularly. So
correct,
that bucket of where you said, when you add that aspect of, you have aspect
correct,
of, okay, they've played so and so games,
correct.
but that may be a very lesser amount when it
Compared
comes
to,
to women
yeah,
footballers, right?
yeah,
So yeah, sorry.
correct. I think women athletes in India are the champions. They are the future, they are the present, and it's high time that we recognize this. They perform much better if be it Olympics, be it women's cricket team, be it women's hockey team. So I've always figured this out in the last 10, 12 years that we really do well whenever women are competing from India. I was always interested in women's football, and 2017 when I was starting out, and again, like I said, no, I had met a lot of players and things like that. Now, with last year being a very interesting year for me, was under 17 World Cup was coming to India. I did know that there will be a lot of attention on the Indian market. Now people are looking at India under 17 women's football cup. Oh, that is interesting. Our girls under 17, our girls are going to play. That was the notion and the mood of India in general. So I found that timing to be perfect. I have very good friends in the women's football team who I know very well, and then when I spend time knowing that this is the right time to be involved to get these players. I've seen IWL every season. The inception of IWL that happened in Shillong, I was there. The MFA guys were doing. My friend Arki was there. I met so many coaches, Mandy ma'am. There's so many of them. And I remember when I had gone there and they realized who I was and this, that, I remember from the AIFF staff to all these coaches, it felt like I am someone and I'm surrounded by 50 women who are saying, please get sponsorship for women's football. And I felt so touched at that point of time, knowing, wow, like, yes, there is, but like, can our structure get better? So, off late, I think because we are competing in very good matches, Olympic is a chance. I'm someone who's praying and hooting and seeing if we really make it to that level. SAF Cup performance wasn't good, but we competed. So, I think there is more. Now the attention is given to women's football. There's more happening. Challenge was, yes, when I signed Asha, it was mentally challenging for me, but I know the market. I talk to sponsors, I work with brands. It was so difficult because they don't know. First of all, people don't know who Asha Lata is. Women's football, oh, they don't know men's football or women's football is a different ball game. So who's Asha Lata? So I had to literally pick my battles and fight and know. And knowing Asha's journey and her story, I recognize that she deserves it. Like, how can the captain of India, who's had such a big journey, does not deserve it? Like, why do people not know who Asha Lata? I was so shocked and surprised, and with the poor quality of work the other agencies do, they treat women players, be it football or other sports, they just treat it like whatever. But I was just shocked with the quality of, like, a market is good when there are more people competing, but there was no market. So for me, when I signed her, it made a lot of, I would cross question myself that, can I be successful in putting Asha's journey out? And I'm telling you, I really fought. Like, I had to choose and fight and really go out of my way to make things happen for her. And when it did, like today, when I sit back in this podcast or with my friends and I'm smiling, and when they say, oh, we saw the global campaign for women's sports, and that's Asha Lata, she plays football, right? We saw her with Mirabai, or women's football captain went for the World Cup final. So when we did deals with Adidas, when a Hindustan Times brunch cover was with Asha Lata, 2023 starts with a bang. Who is in the January edition of 2023? Ashalata Devi. So I think doing all of this work, it was very challenging, but I made it happen. So I am very proud of my team that we were able to successfully start this conversation and let people know who Ashalata is. So yeah, and I hope we continue doing this.
Now, when you speak with the brands and for sponsorship or whatever the deal is, so there are some brands that may not be giving money,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But you also want to engage with the smaller and the growing ones and the top notch ones,
correct,
right? Same thing with the players, like the way you work.
correct.
So then, what is the most difficult? Like yesterday, I mean not yesterday, but the last episode that we had, there was a question about the toughest negotiation that you've had in terms
Correct.
of the contract or with the player.
Correct.
But here, what was the toughest thing with when it came to the brand side of thing? Where
Correct.
you have to, where you're like you're eager to sign, but then they're like, what is this like? What kind of a clause is this? Or
I've gone out of my way to tell some of the brands that these are my initial years saying, I will pay you money.
hmm,
I've gone and told the brand manager, I will give you money. Just put her name or his name and make this deal happen. It was a barter deal. There's nothing. There are a lot of times where it's not a commercial deal, it's a barter deal. But I understand because the brand value and the bandwidth that a brand has, if they're not giving me money but they will make my player a household name, I will choose it. Why not? In those times where I've gone to brands and I have gone and like told the brand manager, I'll give you money. What do you want? But put my player in there. And they're saying, no, no, we are not currently looking at this, or we've selected this model for a sports campaign. Because aesthetically on the camera the model looks better, and I am there trying to fight and say, but use a proper player. And whatever money you're spending on XYZ, not taking their profession away, give it to a certain player. You'll get their image rights, you'll get their story. So I also had to go and educate people. I had to educate brands, I had to educate them how does it work, because they are very traditionally, the top brands are used to saying, like for example, like I have a friend who runs one of the most successful eyewear brands in India. Calcutta guy, someone I know since we were kids. So when I would go now, and I know, like if he uses one of my players in his campaign, it's done. Like he's gonna get a lot of money. He, and she'll be a very popular name. Now when I go to him and say, what do you think? Now apart from friendship, I'm trying to have a business conversation, and he would come to, last month I shot with Salman Khan. So their approach with these brands are like, they're used to shooting with these actors and celebrities, that they're like, oh, they'll give me certain amount of hours, I'll give this dialogue, I will shoot the TVC, or I will shoot the content for digital, and my ads, my photo shoot, everything gets wrapped up and I'm done. But players don't work like that, right? So for them, like, I have to choose and pick partnerships. I have to see where this stuff is going to go out there. Does it align with the brand or not? Does it make sense? So I've had to fight and educate them, that saying, dude, it doesn't work the same way. Your hours for shoot and all of that can be the same, but a player is different compared to an actor who's coming, which is very organic for them to do it. Also challenges, like for example, the same friend, he's had Salman Khan, Vicky Kaushal, all of these big stars, right? So when I went to him being very sad, saying, you're paying so, matlab, Salman Khan probably already has like 2,000 crores. You're just adding more value over there. Why not take someone young and new that I have? And he would come back to me saying, Abhishek, try and understand that when I go to a Kanpur, Nagpur, Indore, I go to tier 2, tier 3, Rachi, Katak. People will look at Salman Khan and buy my product. But will people in those towns know who your player is? And then that is a reality check for me too. Like it's a different ball game altogether. Like for example, they are Virat Kohli is very loaded. Yes, he's doing some good work. He's invested in a lot of athletes as well. But a big brand goes because Virat is a household name everywhere. So I think these are things where I also have to choose and understand. Like in my younger days, I would go fight with people saying, why not? Why can't you make this happen? You know, I know you have the budgets, I know you have everything, but why can't you make it happen? So I think this plays a big role. And what I would like to add via this medium that we are connecting and we're getting to listeners is, guys, Virat is a household name and Salman is a household name and all of these stars are household names, is because of the fact that so many fans are watching their stuff. So if a true Indian football fan can go watch our women's team play, go watch the ISL matches, I League matches, India matches. The same goes with any other sport. If the fans can unite and demand and make these people, automatically the brands will follow. It's very easy for us to criticize and say, we don't do well, our players are never seen here, there, XYZ. The reason is we as a community need to contribute. We need to fight hard. How we are crazy about cricket and the stadiums are full, the same has to be there for all the other sports, even for like maybe athletics. If we go compete, the media comes, the whole cycle will happen. Tomorrow if you think there's a viewership of a running competition that is happening, which is more than 10-20 lakhs, you think a brand will not want to get sponsor or sign players? They will. So I think we, the people in general who love sports, should come forward and commit. The way we go for a Shah Rukh Khan film, we can go for a Pathan. I'm sure we can go and watch a lot of these matches and support our players and do all of that.
Well, this just made me feel like I should probably end the episode because quite good parting thoughts. But I
Yeah.
have to probably take questions that have been sent in because I
Yeah.
think I'm done with
Yeah.
my scribblings over here. Yeah,
Yeah.
more or less, I think you answered it very well.
I hope I did.
Yeah, I mean, we can only hope any which
Yeah.
way. In Indian football, I think that's the only thread that
Yeah.
we live in. Is social media following or brand deals the only parameter to measure athletes'
No.
success?
No.
Do you want to add anything to it, or is that a one word?
Nothing. I think competing in competitions, having silverware, and the awards that matter. For example, a Padma Shri winner is a Padma Shri winner for life. That has a lot of value. Gold, silver, bronze is a Olympic gold, silver, bronze. So, nothing else can matter to that. Yes, this plays a part, but not
Hmm.
completely. Yeah.
What kind of criteria does he have to sign? He is you here
Mm.
to sign an athlete, and what kind of companies is he working to do the marketing for his athletes?
What type of criterias do I have to sign players? Depending on the sport, depending what I want to learn, depending. I have a decent name in the hockey industry and the football. For example, last year in 2019, I remember I had gone for a competition and I saw the Indian cycling boys, and they are the junior number one cyclist in the world, and people don't know about it. So I was shocked. Then I went and read more. I was like, Indians are junior cycling world champion. How is that even possible? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have XYZ? Then I found about that. I chased to sign these boys for 2 years, 3 years. Nobody knew about them. Whenever I went to the federation or their coach, and these boys are young boys, the coach wouldn't understand. The coach does not want to go off his power or their connect with the player. And I would reach there and say, dude, like, I don't want to compete, like, I'm just wanting to service and make these players into big household names, and I know they would compete. So cycling is something, I pick a sport. I would love to know. I found out these boys are doing really well. Now I know in 2024 Olympics or 28 Olympics in LA, I am marking it right now, and you guys can listen to it. 100% these boys are going to get silverware. 100%. This is a golden generation of indoor cycling that we have in India, and these boys are fantastic. So I went, then learned about the sport. I didn't know about cycling. I learned, prepared, then went and signed these guys. So I think I choose my criterias like that. Attitude is something, psychology is something, background is something, goals have to be aligned. I think I put a very human criteria in front of me and then sign the players that I want to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, but the other half of the question was what kind of companies are you
For
working for
marketing,
marketing?
not really. I consult my friends who are marketers, get to know an idea, but there's a certain like I have to understand my player is always not a product, right? I have
Yeah.
to put the human angle. I'm not selling Amul ka butter or any product or a service. So for me, what is important is I try and understand the human factors and what works. So I'm not going to go just sell my athlete for the sake of selling, which I would do in my younger days. Now it's more like categorically involved. For example, Vandana likes a certain nutrition brand, or Asha likes that. So it's very important for me to build that partnership for that brand. And on the other hand, when I have a young player like Mumtaz or Ishika, young women's hockey player, they don't really think they want this nutrition. They might want something else. So I think all of this is important. It's very customized. And obviously, I have a team that works on it. I have friends who I can consult with. Yeah.
So I think this bit you've already mentioned about, and we've already covered it in the first part. Since the question is mentioned, I'll just take it. But does managing finances, life, and medical insurance and investments also fall under the responsibility of an athlete? If so, do you help players take financial decisions or hire any specialists like wealth managers or insurance agents?
Yes, yes. To the capacity where I think I can guide them when they're starting their careers and they don't know anything. For example, as basic as, can you get me a CA? Can someone file my GST returns? Can someone file my taxes on time? From then coming to investments, LIC policy, what is your 80G, 80C, 80D, where all can you save money? And a lot of players, because they start young, the salary is not high, and suddenly if they perform well, or 2 years is that salary from like 5 lakhs has gone to like 1 crore. Now what do you do? So then I, as much as to the ground level what I can consult and connect them, then I connect them with financial advisors or people I think can be a right fit who can help them make investments. 80% of the time, this is what I would also say, in the Indian market, what happens is there is always family who wants to consult you in financial advising. I think we are living in a day and age which is very important that, yes, I go to my father, for example, myself. I have learned things from my father. I will consult my father in taking a decision or understanding, or some cousin, but I will also reach out to a professional to give me an idea what is financial management. I think a lot of players, athletes should understand in general. Yes, there are people who can help them. Yes, they have people in their background, but what is very important is get a professional person. So I always connect when I think it's not like something beyond me. I always connect them with people and these
What are
services.
the major verticals to consider in managing an athlete?
Can you elaborate a little more? What do you mean
I mean, that's
verticals?
another question that's mentioned here. I'm not sure of what exactly he meant, but what are the major verticals? Is probably you're also talking about the criteria that come with a player. Like, are
So
you already in
maybe,
your head thinking about brand, commercial, sponsorship?
yeah, yeah, correct. I think of all of these things. Can I also see? I have 25 exclusive players. All of them can't be a brand, right? I have to understand one on one who can be. What is the personality? A player, one player can be a monster on the field, and off the field is so shy that, matlab, if I put a camera, that they will not want to even do an interview. So I have to understand personalities like that, and then pick and choose who can be a brand, who has that outraging personality, who has that confidence, who can accept failures. A lot of times what happens, a lot of athletes can't accept that. Obviously branding is something we are like, nobody can predict saying this brand is going to be a hit, or this will work, this will not work. We're all trying. So if I understand that athlete has that maturity to take, knowing if it fails, it fails, no problem. But that doesn't mean I stop. Maybe I'll try something else. So understanding these elements are very important. For example, like last year, the highest goal scorer on a junior hockey tournament was the Indian girl called Mumtaz Khan. She is fire. I have worked with so many women hockey players. This girl is fire. I love her attitude. Her aggression in the game is different. And because she's so young, we connect, we work. I have met so many players in the last 6 7 years in hockey. Her attitude is something else. There are sometimes that I get gut feeling. She's one of those that I got a gut feeling straight away. I'm getting goosebumps saying it. she is going to be a star for women's hockey. She's probably going to go score the highest amount of goals for India. She will be, and this is like a conversation she and I have whenever we are talking. I keep telling her, the day you become the highest goal scorer for India, I will be the happiest, and you tell me whatever you want. So I think engaging with such young talent who have that fire in them is my thing, and I know she'll be a brand. Yeah.
I think the last question is something we've already spoken about. How do you calculate the commercial worth of an athlete when approaching sponsors? But this would be, is there a magic formula?
No. There's no magic formula unless I sign Dhoni, Virat, all of these
To talk
guys.
about a cricket, have you thought of, are you very consciously and it's a very intentional thing of not wanting to take cricketers? I'm not talking about the big ones, but because you also play.
See, I started my career in cricket.
Hmm.
So I saw a lot going on in cricket.
Hmm.
I started my career working with RCB.
Hmm.
Then worked with KKR for 2 years.
Hmm.
I saw some of the most iconic cricketers ever in my life. Like, I would see Ricky Ponting sit next to me every day. I would see Jaunty Rhodes on the field. Like, it's a dream. I would pay to see Jaunty Rhodes play, or like just do fielding or things like that. But like, I think at a certain point in my life, in my career, most importantly, I worked with some big names. I don't think so I would want to mention them, but these are very big stars in non-cricket sport.
Hmm.
When I worked with them, this was in my younger days when I was interning and I worked with these guys, I realized that, wow, this is my calling. This is a star. This is a star that is globally known. Like, I was obsessed. I played cricket myself, but cricket is just very limited, very inward looking market. Yes, I think as Indians, we should accept we are the best in cricket. Cool, no doubt. But as Indians and the population that we have, the economy that we are building, we are a developing economy. We tend to be one of the best in the next years to come, global dominance. Can we be best in other sports as well? I think these were the questions that I asked myself, and then took a call knowing I'd love to work with a boxer, I'd love to work with a football player, hockey player, individual sports, cycling.
Hmm.
Trust me, I don't think so the listeners or people sitting here know about cycling, boys, but that's the truth. So I think that is where the key is, and I've not looked at it, but I have not signed anything saying to God's will I will never work with a cricketer. I have done a lot of non-exclusive partnerships and brand deals for cricketers who are not my players, but I do it because it's commercial value, it makes sense. I have a business to feed, I have a team to run, so I take these calls. But exclusively, I've not signed anyone. But you never know in future. Like,
Yeah.
if I sign, it'll probably be India under 15 or India under
Yeah.
19. I
Yeah.
will never go signing.
Yeah.
You
That's what I even I was coming to
that's
it.
my
Now,
process.
final two questions. One, what does or how does athletes today stand out among the other agencies that are there?
Very, very committed, quality over quantity. And I think, honestly, we are one of those who gives a shit about our players and their career. They might not be very commercially viable. I have some players that I've signed, zero commercial sense. I make no money. I rather only have to invest time, give my brains, hear everything. It's draining, but I do it because I give a shit about their career. I care about them. I understand their background. So I think EQ for my team and myself and for AT is right up there. I think this is one of the criterias that we stand out compared to the others. And yeah, we want to be kingmakers. So that is our goal. And I think the little bit work that I have done everywhere, I have been known to be this person who builds and finds the talent, and then when the talent becomes a star, they're there.
Yeah, finally, I mean, I know your agency is called Athletes Today,
Yeah.
but we're not an athlete here, but we do have athletes coming on the show,
Yeah.
and or you rather working closely with athletes. Have you ever thought of signing a show, kind of, and then making
Why
right here?
not? Why not? I know Gaurav. I know some of the content that is out there. I think it will also become a little healthier for the audience to consume something interesting and just not consume whatever is there. So I think this is a lovely thing, and I obviously exclusive rights I'm willing to sign and do this. Yeah, 100%. I think this is also a pathway, because the new media is this, and it's about time that people should do it. I don't know if somebody else is doing it or not. We could do it.
Yeah,
Or
and I'm sure like this could also pave a path for players who are interested in wanting to do. They can have their own shows,
correct,
and I'm
correct,
all here to
correct.
share my brains
Their
and
own
knowledge I
shows, or
have.
be a part of the show, or
Yeah,
be in the advisory. And this is another medium to communicate.
right,
You
right.
know,
Now, to all the brands who at least today endorse and have the players with like Red Bull and Puma and Adidas, if you're listening to this, we are always open and our doors, though we record behind closed doors, we'll
Kalyan
open it.
Jewelers also.
Yeah,
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 yeah. We
absolutely.
can put some jewelry
I'm from
segment.
Kerala,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
though I
perfect.
wouldn't want to wear a gold, but I don't mind wearing one.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get you platinum.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
which has more
Great.
value than
Yeah,
gold now. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I like it though because not the
Yeah,
color
correct,
gold, right?
correct,
It's the white gold kind of a thing.
correct.
But yeah, any which way. I have a few thank yous to say, so if you can just be a bit more patient because I have to give a shout out to Anirudh Iyer. He's one of the students pursuing sports
Whoop.
management in Global Institute of Sports Business. He helped me with making the Google form and made
Superb.
sure it was done in time. And
Anirudh, feel free to reach out if you want to know anything.
yes.
And maybe next place you will see me is GISB. You
Why
never know.
not? Yeah. Thank you so much, Anirudh, for your time and for your effort. Thank you for being a very big supporter of our show, and to all the other listeners and everyone who sent out their questions from our dear ones, our friends, the ones who would probably now become friends, and also listeners. One mention I have to give, I think, name is Roshan, who is this one guy who makes sure he listens to our show. Like sometimes our show is released and I don't know and I've not tweeted. He's the one who knows that it's out there and he listens and he shares it. So
You're
I'm
a
like,
true fan, yeah, Roshan.
yeah.
We'd love to meet you for coffee sometime. Yeah,
He's just
100%.
outside India, but it's
Okay.
fine. Whenever he comes
Whenever you're next in India.
back.
Done.
Yes. So thank you so much, guys. And it's a pleasure, Abhishek, once again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I've had a podcast where I've gone in such depth and details. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you make the best out of whatever we've spoken.
Yes, and we are a totally Indian football show available on all the audio leading platforms. I know I've been saying this for a very episodes that you may see a video content. It's a call out and shout out to all those N2 upcoming video editors as well.
Yes.
If you would love to, we would love to have extra pair of hands. So just slide into our DMs and help work with us. Together we'll do the collaboration.
100%.
And yeah, thank you once again, and a shout out to my engineers and my producers Akhil, Siddharth, Aditya for their patience. It's been a very long episode, both of these parts, but they've been kind. And thank you so much to all the lovely listeners once again. Thank you, Abhishek. This is the Totally Indian Football Show signing off with me, Siju. Bye bye.